Madam Chair, we are at 1 o'clock, but I think we should allow at least 5 minutes.
Okay, we'll wait a few minutes.
Okay.
So since our meeting hasn't started yet, am I allowed to do my pre-meeting question?
Well, I would say so if it's not violating the rules, because I don't know what the rules are.
In open meetings, we really don't discuss anything that's not been agendized.
But it's not open meeting yet. I haven't opened the meeting.
Ooh. So we're just sitting here talking then. Okay.
I was going to ask if Madam Chair, you would like to start the meeting, but do you want to take a moment?
Oh, I was just, are we ready to start the meeting?
It looks like we should have quorum looking at the attendees.
Because you all know I have, icebreaker questions that I have, for meetings that I facilitate, but we don't usually use them for this meeting. So sometimes I use them as just a question that we talk about while we're waiting for us to open this meeting. So, but where are we, Niani? Are we ready to start our meeting?
I think we are.
Okay.
I think we are. Good afternoon and welcome to the subcommittee meeting for technical assistance for the Governor's Interagency Advisory Council on Homelessness. This meeting has been publicly noticed in compliance with the Nevada's open meeting law. Chair Michelle Fuller-Hellauer will call the meeting to order.
Good afternoon. It is February 20th, 2024, and I would, let's see, it's 1:03, and I would like to call the Nevada Interagency Council on Homelessness to Housing Subcommittee for Technical Assistance to order. Niani, would you please call roll?
Chairwoman Michelle Fuller-Hellauer.
Present.
Karen Van Hest. Noga Valdez.
Present.
Dr. Pamela Janelle.
Present.
Chris Murphy.
Present.
Vice Chair Brooke Page. Austin Pollard. Christy Costa.
Present.
Lorena Loomis.
Present.
Scott Benton. Madam Chair, we do have quorum.
Excellent. Thank you all for being here this morning. Let's go ahead and move on to item number 2. This is the first of 2 public comments. No action may be taken upon a matter raised until the matter has specifically been added to the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. If you're making a public comment via phone, please call 1-775-321-611. The ID number is 847-312-658#. We're now open for public comment. Please unmute yourself and state your name for the council. Do we have any public comment? Hearing none, seeing none, we will close this item and we will move on to agenda item number 3 for possible action. Agenda item number 3 is discussion and possible approval of the minutes from January 16th, 2024, Interagency Advisory Council on Homelessness Technical Assistance Subcommittee meeting from our minutes. Is there any discussion about the minutes? If not, may I have a motion to approve?
Dr. Janelle, for the record, I move that we approve the minutes.
I have a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
Noga Valadez for the record. I second that.
Thank you, Noga. Thank you, Dr. Janelle. We have a motion and a second. I will open it up for vote. All those in favor, please unmute yourself and indicate by verbally saying aye if you approve.
Aye. Aye.
If you are in opposition, please unmute yourself and indicate by saying no. If you abstain, please unmute yourself and indicate by saying abstain. Motion carries. Minutes pass. Close agenda item number 3. Agenda item number 4 for possible action, discussion and possible vote on the language in the letter that the Interagency Council, Advisory Council on Homelessness Technical Assistance Subcommittee will use for new membership recruitment. I'd like to have some discussion on the current vacancies for the Technical Assistance Subcommittee, and we'll take a look at the Department of Welfare and Support Services website link. So we had a small group of you that agreed to take a look at the language. I want to thank you very much for working with Niani and her team to clean up the language for our recruitment letter so that we can get that recruitment letter sent out. That letter, see who worked on the letter. I'm trying to remember. That was Austin and
Karen.
Karen, right?
Yes.
Hey, Niani, would you mind taking us through the recruitment letter?
Yes, Madam Chair. So the letter on the screen is the recruitment letter that can be sent out or attached to the listserv for recruitment. So it states the Technical Assistance Subcommittee to the Nevada Interagency Council on Homelessness provides advice and information to assist the ICH in developing the statewide strategic plan for addressing homelessness. For more information regarding the Nevada Interagency Council on Homelessness to Housing Strategic Plan, please visit. The link below links them exactly to the Interagency Council Strategic Plan. The Technical Assistance Committee may include, without limitation, representatives of federal, state, local agencies, provides of service, religious organizations, persons involved in the sale or lease of housing, members of the public. The subcommittee is recruiting additional members to join, with a preference for new members who work in the field of addressing homelessness or have lived experience pertaining to homelessness, if applicable. The qualified prospective candidates must be willing and available to meet at least once a month to develop and update the statewide strategic plan on homelessness. The areas being addressed: housing, homelessness prevention and intervention, wraparound services, education and workforce development, coordination of primary and behavioral health, coordination of data and resources, policies, and long-term planning. Interested candidates are requested to send a letter of interest to dwssh2h@dwss.mv.gov. That includes your name, title, organization you work with, and contact information. Please include any experience you have personally or professionally in homelessness, mental health, substance use disorder, service delivery, and any skills or knowledge you will be able to contribute to the subcommittee. Prospective candidates will be scored and evaluated by the ICHTA with a scoring sheet utilized a Likert scale. The council will take into consideration an application's expertise, knowledge, skill, involvement in the field, and other relevant factors that may contribute that will assist in the council's endeavors to end homelessness in Nevada. Once scoring has been complete, the ICHTA will vote on potential members as needed to fill vacant positions. We put a deadline in here, but obviously that can be changed. The deadline to respond is March 20th, 2024, due to a recent opening on the subcommittee. However, we will accept applications beyond this date for future considerations. All applications will be kept on file for 1 year.
Thank you, Niani. Any thoughts from the subcommittee? Any reaction?
Dr. Janelle, for the record, I think is very clearly and well stated. So thank you to everyone who worked on the language and updating this document. I would love to hear what the rest of the group has to say as well.
Thank you, Dr. Janelle. Chris?
This Chris for the record. And I agree with Dr. Janelle's comments. I was just wondering in the fourth paragraph where we're talking about preferences for new members, or do you think that would exclude the representations of federal, state, and local agency individuals that be part of this, or is our preferences going to be exclusive of those individuals? That was the only thing that came to mind when I read it, but I thought that it was extremely well written, and thank you for all your hard work.
To Chris's point, this is Dr. Janelle for the record. I can see where, inclusion versus exclusion may be, because we have to think about, how does this look to someone who's reading it who may be interested? And, given that I am part of a state organization, if I didn't check some of those other boxes, I might be excluded, for membership, right? So is there any way we could probably maybe put in maybe a connection to instead of a preference? Because then that way, if there's a connection, it kind of opens it up to people, whether they're, part of state or other agencies. I'm just curious with regards to that as part of the discussion. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Anybody have a response to that or thought to that?
This is Chris for the record. I like changing it to connection versus preference.
So are you talking about the sentence that says the subcommittee is recruiting additional members to join, that sentence?
Yes, that's correct.
So where it says with a preference for new members, or we could say, or seeking new members with a connection to addressing homelessness. I don't know. Please, y'all help me wordsmith it because it's after 1 and I can't have any more coffee.
So is it that we don't want a preference for new members who work in the field, or do you want for new members who have a connection to the field? Is that where you want that?
Well, that's a great question. I think that's up for discussion. Thank you.
This
That's
is
why I would-
Nolga.
Yes, please.
This is Nolga Valadez for the record. I think a connection to homelessness because just somebody, maybe people feel connected to, they're passionate about homelessness, but not necessarily work within a field that has to do precisely with homelessness. Does that make any sense?
Well, we could have them having a connection, but then also or work in the field, because then that way it's very exclusive. So that way you're connected and or working. And if you happen to be both like me, it's inclusive, right? So yeah, I would love to hear what anyone else would have to say about that. Good point, Nolga, and thank you for that, Chris.
Yeah, no, I like, this is Nolga for the record. I like what you said to combine both. So that way, again, we're including everybody.
Now it's just like, how do we make it look like that on paper?
Connection to and or work in the field of
In the field. Is it field of
homelessness.
addressing homelessness or work in the field? Yeah.
Or have lived experience pertaining to homelessness.
Well, and then like with the connection or work in the field, or work toward efforts of addressing homelessness. Because then the efforts could be whether it's nonprofit or a state organization or anything.
Well, isn't that
I don't know, is homelessness
isn't that what work in the field of addressing homelessness? Isn't that what that says? Or is that not what that says?
Okay, work in the field of addressing homelessness.
Is
okay.
that?
I didn't know if it was like a field or so.
I mean, if that's not what that says to you, then that might not be what it says to other people either. So I'm just asking.
Gotcha.
Because what it says to me might not be what it says to the general public. So that's why we have, a whole group of people to review things, right?
Right.
I want to make sure it's easily readable. And maybe we need to break that up into multiple sentences. Maybe we're trying to put too much into one sentence.
Or if we could just say work toward.
Maybe you just have an interest in addressing homelessness.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because it's all about addressing homelessness. That's what I was gonna say, like work toward the efforts.
What their connection is, whether they work in the field or not. Maybe it's
right.
If you
that's
have
what I was saying.
Interest in addressing homelessness, we want, or have lived experience, we want you to apply.
Right.
So like work toward efforts addressing homelessness. What do y'all think about that? Yes. But so
the subcommittee.
Olga, what were you saying?
I apologize. I was reading out loud. I didn't notice I was not muted. I am so sorry.
Well, we're okay if you want to read to us, you know.
Yeah. I kind of miss it. I need a little story right now to keep me awake this weather.
Story time,
Yeah.
nap time, you know.
Yeah, I was just reading it to make sure it made sounds in my brain, and I didn't realize that I had not muted myself.
Yeah, and I like what you were mentioning, Madam Chairwoman, about breaking it up into multiple sentences. Ooh, there it is. And you could say may have a connection to. And or work toward efforts addressing homelessness. And then, yeah, so work toward efforts addressing homelessness. Let's put a period there. This may or may not include having lived experience pertaining to homelessness.
Or also seeking.
Okay.
Or,
there you go.
Persons with lived experience.
There, come on, look at y'all. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me put myself on mute. Please strike that from the record.
And then I would say, if applicable, take that off. Just also seeking persons with lived experience. Actually, can we flip that? Can we put seeking persons with lived experience pertaining to homelessness first, before the potential recruits may have a connection to?
I'm actually amenable to whatever the group says. I would like to also add, when I look at that right there, it's like, whoa, I can't escape that at all. Check, check, check. It's very inclusive.
What do y'all think about that? The subcommittee is recruiting additional members to join, seeking persons with lived experience pertaining to homelessness. Potential recruits may have a connection to and or work toward efforts addressing homelessness.
So instead of saying seeking persons, so we may want to put we are seeking. Maybe to add an affirmative to it in terms of the group. Yeah.
That's our educator.
There are plenty more on this call, so I'm only as strong as the group that I found myself with. So thank you all.
Okay, Chris, how are you feeling about that sentence or paragraph?
I like it. I like it. It looks really good.
Okay,
Thank you, Chris.
I've gotten some hearts and some thumbs up. Any other concerns, questions, thoughts about whether it be that paragraph or the rest of the letter?
Thank you, everyone, for your input, because I think that input in that one section because it was so well written, to find that that was like the only thing that I found that may have needed adjustment is truly remarkable. That speaks to, you know, the messaging, and I believe that, you know, once this is approved and moves through, we will receive a lot of people who express interest. So thank you all for your input.
Awesome. Now, thank you all for that. Now, Deani, there's a website that you send a link to the website, and there is. Well, why don't you just talk us through rather than me kind of botching all this?
Okay, Madam Chair. Deani Cooper for the record. So Sam has graciously added the website. So it's the dwss.nv.gov, which now has a link to homeless to housing. So if she clicks on that link, it takes you to this landing page, and it just gives a very brief discussion on the Interagency Council on Homelessness. The Division of Welfare and Supportive Services, Homelessness to Housing Unit provides administrative support to the Interagency Council on Homelessness. The council is responsible for collaborating with federal, state, and local agencies to develop the Nevada Housing Crisis Response System, establish a strategic plan to address housing insecurities, and increase awareness on issues related to homelessness. A technical assistance subcommittee has been established to provide advice and information to assist the council with developing a strategic plan. The committee may include, without limitation, representation of federal, state, and local agencies, providers of services, religious organizations, persons involved in the state or lease of housing, and members of the public. To apply to serve on the Technical Assistance Subcommittee, please visit, then there's a link there. So what they were able to do is use the same basic application that's on the state site on if you want to apply to be on any of those boards. They just brought that in. So it's a very basic application where it just asks for information, and then that is linked to our email address that's dedicated, the DWSS H2H. So we can also send people to this link as well, because last meeting you guys asked and I said I was pretty sure it wasn't going to happen. Then obviously I asked, and this did happen. So this is another avenue. It's very basic, but they got it done pretty quickly. And
That's
it mimics
awesome.
Right, and it mimics it's the exact same application that if they were to apply for any of the other boards under the governor's office. So that is up and available, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So what it doesn't do, though, is it doesn't allow for like that letter to be attached or for us to ask specific questions. So it's just kind of that general application, correct?
Correct. And what we could do, if you guys so choose, we could, once we got those applications, the form is submitted, and that comes to our email address, the H2H, and then we could send the letter requesting the additional information.
This is Dr. Pam Janelle for the record. Oh, are we in a space to discuss this?
Go ahead, Dr. Janelle.
Okay, I just want to go by the rules. First of all, excellent job on doing some fact finding and creating this like amazing portal and opportunity. My question was, so this is actually directly, like once they submit the form, it's routed to us, correct?
It's routed to the email address, yes.
Wow, that's like impressive. And as you were saying before, because individuals were not able to, like, let's say, upload that additional information, the fact that it does come to the email address, that's a great second step in vetting as well. So I think that this really helps us create a very solid process so that, you know, things are not hitting someone's personal email address, but it keeps it very compartmentalized. And I really do like that. Thank you.
So would it be a two-part process where they would need to fill out this application and then we would follow up with a letter? Do we send out the we send out the letter? Because now that we have this option, right, and we've got the letter, right? We're going to send out the letter saying, hey, we're recruiting. What do you, we want you all to respond. But now we have this portal opportunity, but the portal opportunity doesn't give everything that we're asking for, because we want some background, right? We want to find out from people what their experience is working in, you know, a home services field, that kind of stuff. So how do we get that information from people? But I really like the kind of this getting general information from everybody to have like at least some general, like a basis, a baseline for everybody. So do we adjust our letter and say, if you're interested, go here and fill out this first, and then we'll, I'm not sure what the process will be, right? Pam, Dr. Janelle?
Madam Chair, for those who may or may not have been part of this process before, it may be helpful if we explain like what the original process was versus this one, and that might help us solution find, like, you know, what our next steps would be. Is that helpful? So what was the process before now?
In the past, the process was we sent out a letter or an email saying we're looking for we're recruiting for the technical assistance subcommittee. Please send us your letter of interest and include X, Y, and Z into that letter. And then they would send that letter to Niani and her team. And then they would collect all that information, and then we would review and respond. Some would have very lengthy letters and have a lot of great information, and some would just say, I'm interested in being on the technical assistance committee, period.
Or like me, I was voluntold.
So, you know, it feels like there might be some value in having an application of sorts, right, where there's a baseline of information that's collected that would be, you know, folks kind of feel like, oh, I got to fill this out. But it also doesn't feel like everything is asked on this application that we would like to have. So I'm trying to think about, how do we get there? How do we get all the information we'd like to have in order to make those decisions? And not make it too cumbersome on the folks that are applying for the information.
This is Dr. Pam Janelle for the record. You raised a very good point, Madam Chairwoman. I really do like the form, because what that does is it may, you know, cut down on, you know, not meeting like our timeline or deadline. Like if we need to accept applications through a certain date, this would be a great way to have a clear start and finish date. And then for the applications that do come in, we move forward to the next steps. If not to exclude anyone, but then I did realize that we still, like in that previous process, and I could be mistaken, so correct me if I'm wrong. But in the previous process, it took a little bit longer because we were waiting for, applications and things to come in, where if this application, like let's say, is part of the letter, and then, people know to click on that link and apply. Then after we collect said X amount of applications, because then we can also determine how many we are willing to accept as a subcommittee as well. So there's a lot of power and a lot of value added for this in terms of like logistically moving forward on a timeline. Yes, we would have to request additional information, but at least we'll know how many to expect as well. But I would love to hear from the rest of the group what you think, because, that's just where my brain is right now. And so I would love to hear multiple perspectives.
Anyone else?
This is Nolga Valdez for the record. Just a quick question. It was mentioned that this form is a form that is used for not just for this particular group, but for others as well. So nothing can be added or anything like that, correct?
Correct.
Leonie?
Correct. This form is as is once they submit it. You can't put anything additional on there.
Thank you.
However, Leonie, I think I heard you say something about you could link this form to something, to a listserv or something.
Right. So in the past recruitments, a listserv went out, and I think it's just the amount of addresses we have on that H2H listserv who would get it, unless anybody passed it on. But what we could do is link this site to the listserv. So that's what they get, is the application. And then once the application comes into the H2H email, then we can send out the letter requesting that additional information. But this application would stay open. I mean, anybody who clicks on that link can always apply, but that doesn't mean you guys will always have vacancies. That makes
Dr.
sense.
Janelle, for the record, you bring up a really good point, because one of my points was that, once, like let's say we're accepting applications from this date to this date, this is where I would be curious to know. I mean, so would we add the link, and then after like a certain date, will we remove the link from the information that goes out? You know what I mean?
No, we wouldn't remove the link, because it would stay on the DWSS website with the homeless to housing. But what we would do, and when I say we, I mean obviously someone on my team, either Janae or Abigail, would then be required to send out a link, say thank you for your application at this time. They are not accepting members, but you can go to the public website. I don't know. We would come up with something that you guys would approve, just to let them know. And then once, say if you got under that magic number of 13, which you guys decided on, then we would reach back out and say, with that additional letter, we would send them that letter and say, now we're opening for additional members.
Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, that's very helpful. I wonder, if we decide to go that route, I wonder if we need two letters though. One for the initial, right? The initial recruitment for the listserv, right? And for any emails we might send out to our networking group, saying, hey, we're recruiting, blah, 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 blah. Go to this site where the application is. And then the second one being, okay, we received your application. Now we'd like a little bit more information from you, so that we can determine a good fit for the subcommittee. So I'm wondering if we need two letters. One part of being part of that email listserv, the other being in the follow-up.
So would the one, Dr. Janelle for the record, so would the one for the listserv be the one that just kind of goes out to everyone? And then the one for the follow-up would be after individuals click on the link and submit the application requesting for like the additional information. Yeah,
Mhm.
I would
Yeah,
say that streamlines the process a bit.
And I'm actually thinking that probably most of what we need is in this letter. We just need to peel it apart and make it two. One a pre and then one a post.
And given, oh, pardon me, Dr. Janelle for the record. And given how much we could probably automate that as well. Like once someone like responds with the application, if there is any way that that other letter can be like auto-generated to request that additional information.
Now you might be asking for a little bit much.
Well, you know, I'm just, you know, I'm just, you know, feeling my pretty woman moment. I'll take that and that and that. I'm more of a visionary, but as far as like implementation, that's where, you know, I lean on my team.
The automation might be one of Niani's staff folks saying,
and this is where I
here,
appreciate y'all.
And hitting send. That's the automation of it, right, Niani?
And
Absolutely.
yeah, I can see Niani, like she's smiling, but she's not smiling. She's like, Dr. Janelle. Thank you for humoring me, but yes, I actually can understand that. I would love to hear what our esteemed colleagues think.
This is Olga Valadez for the record. I definitely like the idea of having this first, you know, initial letter, and then once we get those applications, then submitting for more information. I definitely like that idea. Niani, you mentioned that, you know, once we're not accepting applications, then somebody in your team will then let them know, thank you for applying, but at this time we're not, da 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 da. So then would it then be your stuff? I know it was probably said, but I just got to make sure I understand in my brain. Would it then be when we are accepting applications and we get those applications and somebody in your team saying, thank you for applying, just however that gets worded as a follow-up, this is the other information that we need, and then we will send that other letter that we'll come up with? Is that what we're saying?
Yes, we can do. Yes, we can do that. So we can prepare a letter. We would send this initial letter, getting that additional information. Then we would prepare a letter, and I'm pretty sure we have one from the last time, but I just would have to look in our files that said, you know, thank you for applying. And then remember last time they were voted on a live meeting and we posted the information. So that's part of the process that we would have to go through as well. But we can put together and then send out for you guys' approval a formal letter that said, at this time, we're not actively seeking new membership. We will keep your application on file. Something.
Yes.
Whatever kind of wording you guys approve on, we can put it together and then you guys would vote on.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like it. I like the this one, and then I like it. I'm all for it.
Yeah, I agree with this too, because it's a complete loop of communication. And so there's no confusion or guesswork on either ends for us as like the committee, subcommittee, and then also for those who are applying or answering the call to recruitment. So Thank you very much. This is truly lovely.
I also think that any communication, you know, that goes out saying, you know, thank you, but you know, we haven't chosen you to be a part of the subcommittee, I think needs to include, although these meetings are open to the public and we encourage you to continue, we encourage you to continue to participate by calling in to the public meeting and listening in and participating in public comment, those types of things. I don't want to discourage people from disconnecting, but I want to encourage folks to continue to stay involved and engaged, just even though they might not have been voted in to be part of the actual subcommittee themselves.
And I think by kind of joining more and learning more of the work that it's being done also gives them kind of an upper hand for when there are openings available that, they can, probably say, I've been participating, the meetings, whatever. So that is a great idea.
Exactly. And then they're up to speed, right? And then they're able to just jump right in and keep it rolling. Chris?
Chris, for the record, and I like the idea of being able to continue to gather possible recruits that this allows us, instead of having to start the process new each time. That maybe we would have a bank of people that we could reach out to next time that we go through this.
Yeah, that's great point. Great point, Chris. And maybe we don't have to wait until the beginning of the year every year. We could just keep a full slate. If we know that folks, for whatever reason, need to drop out, we can somebody has to leave, we can bring somebody on right away to replace that person.
Chris, you bring up a really good point. Plus, there will be time and date stamps, so we could see when people have applied at a certain date and certain time, which is also very extremely helpful. Thank you for that. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, so we have, so Niani, can you scroll up on the letter that's on the screen for me, please? So it sounds like where we're at is we need to kind of determine what part of this letter is going to be part of the initial push to go out with the listserv or anything that we might send out to our networks for recruitment. And then what, if any, of this might be part of a secondary letter? And I think that we also would need to include in here the link, right, for if this is part of the initial push or the initial part of the initial list communication in the recruitment or the listserv. I don't know what the language is used for that. The communication that's in the listserv, we would have to put the link for that application on the DWSS website, right? Yeah, to that.
Yes. And while the link is being inserted, I would say the part where it says we may need to is recruiting additional members. To qualify, prospective candidates must be willing to meet at least once a month. And then when we get down to interested candidates, like maybe we should put like a sentence or two in there about interested candidates would be requested to, and then maybe list like 1, complete the application, follow this link and complete a general application. And then after completing the application, you will receive additional information to complete the process. I don't know. Because then that way, yeah. Does that make sense? And yes. Anyone else, please feel free to, because I've had chocolate, so I don't know. My brain may have strayed a little bit. So maybe have like a list of like the actions that may need to be taken, or maybe just like stop at the link and then like take that other part and put it on the letter that we're requesting their additional information. So y'all let me know what y'all think.
This is Nolga Valadez for the record. No, I kind of like that you pointing out exactly what steps they need to take to be able to do it. And yes. Then and then, you know, where it says includes all of that stuff, then can maybe go until the next letter. But definitely, like, you know, just put in those points so that people know exactly what they're getting themselves into, I guess, you know.
Yes, and they know that it doesn't stop at just the application to expect something additional and additional steps they need to take because it's a multi-step process. Thank you, Nolga, for helping me understand what I was saying. I think I'm going to just bring you around with me so you could be my interpreter / translator. You're the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other thoughts, comments? Okay, so Niani, it sounds like at the beginning of that paragraph that says interested candidates, it sounds like we need to add a sentence there that says interested candidates are requested to or should go click on this link or should go to here and complete this application.
Yes, so we need to put the first step in there to complete several steps or whatever, and then we can probably do, I don't know if we want to do a bulleted list or a numbered list saying, please go to this link to complete this application, and then after which you will be asked to send a letter of interest to. Right. I don't know. So whatever the team decides, like what that should look like for consistency.
Sam is diligently working. I know I'm getting credit for it, but she's actually doing all the work.
I know, because I mean, I feel it right here in my neck. So like anybody want to, you know, send me to a spa or anything like that, I will gladly accept. No, actually, you're doing the hard work of typing things because I don't know if I could do that without being so nervous. Y'all would probably think like, how does she get any work done? So yeah, visit to complete the initial application, and then after the application is completed, so that would be our next thing. You will be and then we would like you to send a letter of interest.
You will receive a request for further information.
Okay, yeah. Additional. Yeah, look, go ahead, y'all.
And we can even tell them what the information is. You can just leave that right there. Just put that information.
Or additional information, or since we already know that it's going to be a letter of interest, right? We can say request for a letter of interest.
So they can start getting that prepared right now because they know what it's going to be.
Okay. I think that's good because I wouldn't want surprises either. Oh, sorry. Let me go on mute.
And then the next bullet can, and then you could say that will need to be submitted.
Then that's where we could probably either provide a date, because if this is going to be the letter that goes out, we could put a solid date on here, or we can say materials would need to, application and letter of interest would need to be received by X amount of date. But we do know that the application letter, that information that comes after the application, it will probably have a new date on it because we would have to update that.
Would just say that, how about the additional information will need to be received by the date indicated on the on your letter.
Nailed it. Here, I'm gonna hand you the hammer because you nailed it. Thank you.
And then you have prospective candidates will be scored and evaluated, which is the next step. And
okay, look at you. Please strike that from the record. I'm going to go on mute now.
All right. And then the initial deadline to respond. Do we want to keep this? Do we want to keep this one at March 20th?
I would say, and so would it be the initial deadline to apply, or would it be to respond? Because we're still doing two things.
Right. We need to determine that.
Yes.
So because if we apply, then that pushes out the response, which then pushes out us doing getting the responses back, which then pushes out us doing the scoring and evaluation, which pushes out us getting more people onto the team.
Or does it? And the only reason I say that is if we have like an application deadline, we could actually put in 2 dates. And that's where, when I was saying earlier, we would actually be able to move through our process quicker. So it wouldn't necessarily push it out. It would facilitate us to stay on target for our dates.
Can you say more about that?
Oh, really?
Yes.
So if we want to have answers to people by, let's say, March 20th, I think the initial deadline to apply and have all materials submitted could still be that same date. Or if you want to be sure, like having all the applications in, like let's say by March 10th, then that would still give us a lead time to have all other materials received by the 20th. I'm just, those are arbitrary dates. I did not look at a calendar. So please forgive me for that. Does that make sense? But I would love to hear the team like weigh in and let me know what you think. Because I'm just elaborating on this, but I would love our committee to firm up like actual dates, and we may need to vote on those. So I don't want to put the cart before the horse.
This is Olga Valadez for the record. But we are sending a second letter once for that other information that we're going to request. So at that point, can we say that part, like, can we say this is the application, it needs to be done by this day? Once you get that second letter, this is going to be the information, the requested information, and it's due by this day.
Well, and then if you look at the third bullet, so thank you once again, Nova, you're my interpreter translator. So that third bullet, it does say additional information will need to be received by the date indicated on your letter. So once the application is in and the information is sent out, there will be a date on that said letter. So we don't necessarily have to put it down in the initial deadline to apply. So that's why, because there's the application. So get your application in by then, and then no matter what, once whatever that date is on like the letter that they get after receiving the application, that's the hard deadline anyway.
Right.
So we could say the initial deadline to apply would be this date, and then all supplemental materials, submitted by the deadline provided to you after you apply. And then that way, it leaves this open, but then we would know what the dates are, and so would the applicant, because that will be on their separate material from this letter.
Because I don't want to put too many dates or anything on this one, because I don't want to get people confused.
Exactly. But as long as we as the committee know, and Chris, please forgive me, I am talking over you. I see your hand up, so I'm going to go on mute again.
Chris?
You weren't talking over me. I raised my hand while you guys were talking. You guys are good. You have a lot of good information to share, and I appreciate it. I was just thinking, listening to you, that maybe we could add the date of the initial application right to the end of that first bullet. And that way it's there, and they know that's their first step, and this is when we need to have it done by. And then on the second bullet, where it says request for information that will include your name, title, organization you work with, and contact information, we can delete all of that and just have it include experience you have professionally or personally or professionally in homelessness and continue it there, because we're going to have their name and contact information from their application. And that way we're not asking for the same information twice. And that was the only other input I had. You guys are doing wonderful without me.
No, Chris, let me hand you a hammer because you nailed it.
Great input. Great input.
Yeah, it keeps us busy.
Sam, I think you're the one that's navigating. We heard you're the one that's navigating the modifications on the screen. I think what Chris had said was that initial deadline date, if we could put that after the first bullet point, not after the first bullet, not the third bullet. There you go. And then maybe bold March 10th. Yeah.
Before we bold March 10th, can we look at a calendar and make sure that's actually the date that we want? Because that might be a Sunday.
Absolutely. We haven't voted on dates or anything, because I want to bring up something else with dates too. But I think that whatever date it is, it needs to be bolded.
It's it is a Sunday, I was guessing.
So okay. Anything else with the format of the letter, any of that before we talk about dates? Because there's a couple things with the dates.
I was wondering if, because Chris, you brought up a good point of pulling all that information out. If there is a way, and I know this is more, editing and is there any way we could condense this to one page? Like maybe pull some of the wordiness out of like maybe that second bullet point and pull up those, and then that way it's just all one letter on one page, because then that way we don't overwhelm the applicants, the readers, or the potential recruits. And I know that's more or less about like editing and things like that, but I just kind of think about that. So once the application is completed.
This is Chris for the record. I think that we could take out that sentence with the Likert scale and just go with the council take into consideration an application and pick it up there. I think that we could include that in the second letter so they know how they're
right.
Scored, but it's not necessary for the first.
Yeah.
I also wonder if where it says the areas being addressed, there are, 8 policies. I wonder if that could be split into 2 columns.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because that will save some lines. And I do want to see how this is done because I've never done it. Oh.
Yeah, there you go.
Now that is pretty. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Okay. Now let's talk some dates, because we've talked about, and I know we've just kind of thrown out some dates for just conversational purposes, but I do want to bring to the forefront that our next scheduled meeting is March 19th, correct, Niani? And so if we move forward with having applications due, or the responses to letters from these applications come back on the 20th, or too close to the 19th, we won't be able to vote until our April meeting, which is April 16th.
Madam Chairwoman, thank you for bringing up these dates. I would love to hear from the subcommittee as to how, once again, which dates we choose for closing out the application and then subsequently receiving all of the letters to move through the process. So what do y'all
Actually,
think?
I have to be honest, it was Niani's here sending me reminders of dates of when our meetings are. So I'm not smart enough to remember that kind of stuff. It's the brains behind the behind the figurehead. So I got to give credit where credit's really due.
Nice. Thank you, Niani. So would we want to maybe push the date to March 8th, like close of business March 8th? That is the Friday prior. And then that would give us, and but then if the applications are in by March 8th, then that means the next business day would be March 11th to get the letters and things like that. But if the individuals receive this particular letter, they already would know to probably, you know, prepare their letters. So once the application is received, then the request for the letter, they would probably already have prepared it if it's already here, right? Or that's anticipated to save time. But then the question is, when does the follow-up request for the additional information go out? So do we want to move that to March 6th, a Wednesday, and then do like a Wednesday to Wednesday? So I'm just literally putting this out there as we're all looking at our calendars and dates and things.
Nolga here for the record. Some part of me feels, oh, I'm sorry, Chris, I apologize.
It's fine, you can go. Then I'll go when you're done.
Thank you. Some part of me kind of thinks it's too rushed, but then the other part of me says, you know, when you see something that's due like right away, if you really want to do it, you're going to jump on it right away. So I don't know. I'm a little bit torn.
Well, go ahead, Chris, please.
I just know that when I did my letter, okay, and this is why I think it'd be really wonderful to hear from the people that we just brought on and what their views are, because I know that when I did my letter, I bet you it took me a week that I modified it and looked at it and made changes before I felt comfortable with sending it in.
Gotcha.
And so I'm wondering if what the people that we just brought in, what their views are, if they think a week is enough, or should we leave it at 2 weeks? What their views are.
Chris, thank you for adding that. And yes, and when I'm always like saying I would love to hear what the rest of the committee is thinking, I'm wondering like, why are all these people so quiet? But of course, I don't know the rules. So would any of you, Christy or anyone else, love to just share your experience? And please feel free to give feedback if it is permitted.
This is Lorena for the record. I would say that maybe a week is too rushed, just because I think when I got the request over, I had to think about it, right? And kind of see like if it was gonna fit my like my current workload and like what was going on in my life at the time. And then I finally did the letter. But I'm not sure. I think like 2 weeks would probably be reasonable, right? It gives like a person a week to think about it, because the letter itself isn't like hard to do, right? Like filling out the questions and stuff isn't hard to do. So I think like a week would permit people to like think about it, what they would like, if they would like to do it, not do it, review their scheduling, their workloads and stuff like that. And then another week to actually go through, follow through, and fill out their application. But I do understand, like, also how long does that put it out for like it to be reviewed because of how it lands. But I do know when I had applied, I think it was a while until I had heard back from the committee to know like if I had been chosen or not, or if like my stuff was going to be reviewed or not. So I mean, if it has to wait till April, it has to wait till April. But I think if we're going to put a deadline to, if it's going to wait till April, I think maybe 3 weeks would be fine. If we're trying to like push it for March, then it's like a little bit time constraint, but those are my 2 cents.
Well, Lorena, I appreciate your 2 cents because I'm gonna add $1. Thank you so much for that valuable feedback. And the beauty of it is that was something that I do also remember, you know, being as a member too. And part of it was like my fault. And that's where I was like, I wanted to, you know, get the responses back to you all sooner, based on literally everything that you said. And, you know, yeah, I'm okay with giving the additional time, because, yeah, and if it has to be April, then, yeah, let it be April. But to Chris's point, as well as Lorena's point, I'm okay with that. I was just being weird, like about the dates, just, you know, for my brain. But now knowing the feedback that you provided and along with what we experienced in the past, I have a feeling that this will be a better streamlined, you know, initiative where you won't experience those delays because we'll, you know, have more infrastructure on the ground with this. Thank you.
And I think to give them and us time, April probably looks best.
Yeah, I think so. What I think I'm hearing is that it's better to give enough time rather than to rush. And we also have to keep in mind, which haven't even broached or talked to Niani and her team about, is they need to have time for posting, because this is a public meeting, and all items have to be posted. And I don't know what documents as part of that. I don't remember exactly what all documents had to be posted ahead of time, but I think there's some of those things that we have to post, and so we have to make some things ahead of time have to be up there. And so we haven't even asked Niani to chime in on that yet. So it's sounding like making sure that we had sufficient time for any prospective applicants to have time to respond, for them to apply, then respond to the letter that will go out to them, and then for us to review their applications and their subsequent letter, so that we can then make solid decisions for the April meeting. That's sounding like what I'm hearing.
So it looks like the 20th it is, no, because I know that was the original date.
So then I guess the question comes back to Niani. If we go with that, the 10th is a Sunday, so
right.
If we go with like the 11th and the 20th, or the 11th and the 22nd, does that work for you all, for us in timing for us to do what we need to do and to be able to post for the April meeting?
And go ahead, please, Niani.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, if one deadline was, you said the 11th for the initial application, and then we would then reach out and send the additional letter, and then they would send that back in, we would distribute that, because that would be due, you said, by the 20th. correct?
Or the 22nd or
Or the
something,
20,
yeah.
right. Then we would
Mhm.
distribute that to you guys in an email with the scoring matrix and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Then we could get, yes, we would have the names, we would have the letters, because we have to redact
Okay.
them so there's no personal information. And we could
Correct.
get all of that posted for the April 16th meeting.
Okay.
Yes, I'm going to say, yes, we can do that.
And we, because we will have the March 19th meeting, and that would be a great time that we could like check the status of things as well. Because then that meeting is like kind of in between the application and the letters, you know, us receiving the letters and then moving through that process. Is that correct?
Yes, so
Okay.
we would need to agendize maybe a check-in, but remember, you guys couldn't discuss any of that without
Yes.
us posting all of that in there, and we couldn't get that posted in time.
That's a fair
We could do a
assessment.
check-in. We could
No, but you could say we got X number of applications
Right.
and sent out X number of emails or letters for folks to respond.
Yes, we could do that. Yes.
So see, this is where now I'm going to add Niani and Michelle to my translator interpreter team. Thank you. Well done. Thank you very much. Okay, now that Chris is back, we may have to repeat all of that.
Okay, so I think that we have to do, we've done a lot of work here and a lot of discussion, but I think we have a vote that we need to make because we did a letter that for the initial recruitment, and we talked about dates. So if I could get somebody to do a what's the word I'm looking for?
Dr. Janelle, for the record, I move that we
Motion. That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
I move that we accept the letter that we have adapted and edited and adjusted, as well as I move that we accept the discussed dates for application submissions, acceptances, as well as letter distributions in accordance to our meeting schedule.
This is Chris for the record. I would second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is that a specific enough motion?
I think it covers everything. I think it is.
Okay, so we have a motion. We have a motion on the table, and we have a second. All those in favor, please unmute yourself and indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, please unmute yourself and indicate by saying nay. Any abstentions, please unmute yourself and indicate by saying abstain. Motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody.
That was unreal. Thank you all. I'm going to actually call my mother on that one.
Thank you, everybody. That was a great discussion. Okay, so we're going to move on to agenda item number 5. This one is for information only. We are going to have Champions Report status update from our COC and TA subcommittee members. regarding their progress on developing content and language to be included in their assigned sections for the Nevada Strategic Plan on Homelessness. Any updates could potentially be populated during the meeting. So, do we have any updates? Shall we just start at the top and
I'll go first. This is Nolga.
All right, Nolga.
Okay. So
Make sure you tell us your section.
I'm sorry, wraparound services.
Okay.
So we have reached out to all of those that were interested in volunteering for to be part, to collaborate with us to make sure we're coming up with, wording and that we're covering everything that we need to cover, what we think wraparound services should look like, and all of that. When I sent the original email, less than half of those on my list replied back. I did have a deadline on there, and it was last Tuesday that they were supposed to reply back saying whether or not they were still interested. And then there were some emails also that bounced back. They were invalid. So I was able to figure out a couple of them because there were more people from that entity on there. So I figured out a couple of them, but then some I couldn't. So now what I have prepared, and I had sent an email to Dr. Pam and Karen to just kind of double check my second email that I was going to send to those that said, yes, we'll love to do this. Just basically sharing the document that we originally started with what we think wraparound services should be, for them to put their input, edit, add, whatever they need to do to it, to see like as a group, how we can get it finalized and put into something that will be the final product.
Okay, great. Is there anything you need from this group?
No, because Dr. Pam just reviewed that email and told me that everything looked good, waiting on Karen to reply and tell me that it looks good. And then once I get that, then I'll go ahead and send that email. I have the email drafted and everything. It's just a matter of clicking send once I get Karen's blessing on it. And once I get, basically everybody's going to work at their own pace. I also do have, I believe, a deadline on there. If I don't, I'll make sure to add it. So that way, I don't let it be to whenever people want to, so that they know they have to do something to that document by a due date, and then we can move forward from that. So I don't think at this moment, we do not need anything.
Okay, great.
Dr. Pam Janelle, for the record. Nolga, you go, girl. And I can say I'm so proud of her work because I get to collaborate with her, she and Karen as well. So thank you. I'm honored to be like the little sister on that group. I would like to do an update for education and workforce development. I did actually request some feedback from Nolga and Karen, and they were also kind enough to provide me some feedback. I started a little bit later because, and I just want to thank Niani and all of the other members who were kind enough to update the strategic issues leads or champions, because we did have some changes. And I was able to also send an email out, and I did get less than half of the responses back. So what I did is I sent out another email, and I just had 2 questions. One of them was, are we focusing on education and development for those experiencing homelessness as part of coordinated entry? And so I wanted to kind of just get a feel, just a litmus test of those who are continuing, like what their, perspective is on that. And I'm still receiving responses. And then the second question that I asked was, do we have a clear picture of organizations that provide education and workforce development resources in our state? I had a couple of really good responses, and I did want to just share just a little bit, and then I'll kind of button down the hatches and then keep working. So with regards to the first question, one of our volunteers said that they think education about homelessness may be just as important, not just for those experiencing it, but for those who are misunderstanding who these folks are and what leads to the dire situations in which they find themselves, too many times not to the fault of their own. And then they went on to mention, we need to create a context within which accurate and useful information is available to the communities in which they are trying to get back on their feet, not only so that that way it's not one-sided, it's literally two-pronged. So when we talk about education and workforce development, first of all, we need to build our own capacity and also remove some stigma. But then also, when we are providing services, whether it be partnered with wraparound services, like what would that look like? So those are two, divergent things that we need to clarify. And so in moving forward, we're going to continue having those conversations. But the feedback that I did get was that there is no real clearinghouse to see what some people are doing. And we do need to foster more of an environment around education and workforce development that's not siloed, but more collaborative.
Yes. If I may, I wanted to go back to your question about the coordinated entry.
Yes.
So I want to clarify the question first of all. Can you state the question again for me?
Sure. Please? And this is once again me just putting feelers out there just to see what the response I would have. So I asked, are we focusing on education and I meant to say workforce development for those experiencing homelessness as a part of coordinated entry? And the reason that I asked that is because, there's just education and workforce development as in general, like, here's the program, or is this like, education and workforce development for those who are once again trying to get back on their feet? And so those are some of the responses I got back. That's where there's like, it's divergent because there's a general descriptor and then there's one that's contextual with regards to addressing homelessness as part of coordinated entry or as a component of wraparound services. So I want to be sure that we make a clear distinction because if we don't, we're just literally giving word salad.
I like that terminology, word salad.
I don't play.
So if I may,
please
do a little bit of context setting for coordinated entry.
Yes.
And I'm going to go out on a limb here. So
please.
I don't mean to offend anybody within any of our COCs, but as much as we as COC leaders, and I'll include myself in that, both past and present, past as, with COC coordination in Southern Nevada and current with our contract with rural Nevada COC, as much as we attempt to have a strong coordinated entry system, yes, within Nevada, we're not there yet for any of our 3 COCs. We're trying and we're doing the best that we can with what we have. How that being said,
yes,
the overarching intent of coordinated entry, when it is a healthy coordinated entry, access assessment and assessment and referral system, yes, then yes, it holistically looks yes at a client's circumstances and what they need and helps to get them connected to all aspects of what they need, 360, what they need in order to address not only their housing instability situation, but everything else that they would need, the wrap services to help them to be healthy.
Yes.
What we as a system, a homeless services system, has done is we've started with the housing instability or the houselessness, the homelessness component to get people into housing first, right? To get folks into housing first, and then to wrap services around them.
Yes.
But when we are to a point as a COCs individually and as a state, when we have a healthy coordinated entry system,
that's it.
Then the healthy coordinated entry system would be looking at all of those things. They would be looking at housing, access, assessment, access and referral, workforce development, education.
That's correct.
Behavioral health, physical health. All of those things, and getting people connected to all of those systems.
That is
and
correct.
That we would have a data system that would also help us to do all of that, which is kind of why it's so important for us to have a strong strategic plan and a strong action plan to help us develop that strong state strategic plan, so that each of our COCs can pull their pieces out of that strong state plan. That they locally, regionally, know what they need to do to help us as a state, right, to build out all of that up, so that we can all have healthy systems that will meet the needs holistically of our clients that are struggling.
So I guess my question would be, Madam Chairperson, is where should I take offense to that? Because I agreed with everything that you said, and I was your amen corner over here. So that is one of the reasons why I did actually pose the question, because there's the intent versus the impact. And this is what we're going to tease apart so that we can explore the strategic issue, create a strategic plan, move forward with an action plan, like everything that you said. So you literally just tied it all up with a bow, which I totally appreciate. But that was one of the reasons why I approached it the way that I did, instead of it just being word salad, because we can define it in terms of context, or we could literally take this issue, pull it apart, and then literally assess, where we are and how we build to improve outcomes, not only for children, but for, their families, because that's the needs that we actually do have to address, because that is who we are, the Interagency Council from homeless to housing. So thank you for that. I didn't mean to take up too much of your time, and I see Chris's hand is up.
Thank you. Chris?
This is Chris again, for the record. To answer your question, Dr. Janelle, I think our current system, and we are a coordinated entry site here in New Frontier, and our current system in CMIS is probably our HMIS system no longer tracks people being employed anymore. The questions on education are no longer collected. It's a coordinated entry.
Right.
Okay. And so what we have done as an agency, because we agree fully with what Michelle was saying, is these are all part and very important to a person that's homeless to be successful. Is we have our own separate evaluation that we bring all of our homeless people through to see what needs they have individually, and do our best to connect them. Now, so to rephrase what our Madam Chair said in a different light, is that our present system isn't collecting that information.
Right.
And our strategic plan needs to, in my view, needs to say that this needs to be collected. Somehow we need to do these evaluations to be able to truly help these individuals the way that they need to be helped to be successful. And it's that part
Yes,
we need to
sir.
go from where we are today to where it's
Yes,
not
sir.
neglected to where we want to be in the future to help these people to be as successful as they possibly can.
And Chris, thank you so much for adding that. This is such a value added conversation. That was the reason why I asked that follow-up question, question number 2, because that is what exactly I was trying to tease that information out. And so the feedback I've been receiving, actually, what you all are saying, that is the feedback that I'm receiving from other individuals. So I'm very grateful for that. So it still, is a two-pronged situation, like what is actually education and workforce development, like what does that look like? But then also, what does it look like in the context of the work that we do? So now we get to define what that is in light of the information that is not collected. But then on the same token, we also need to be forward-facing with the community to educate our community, around educating and developing ourselves so that we also know how to be better service providers for those who are experiencing homelessness, as a part of them ensuring that they have improved outcomes through education and workforce development to continue to mitigate homelessness. So I'm right there with you. And thank you for reinforcing the importance of this particular strategic issue, because you brought up some really good points. And so that's why I wanted to be sure that those questions were posed the way that they were. Not specifically, getting on the coordinated entry, because I do know that part does need some work, but because of what we're doing as an organization here, this is where we can also be a support for our COCs in improving that component of our systems to help mitigate homelessness. So thank you for that. So it wasn't a knock on that at all, but it is like, I do have to ask that question so that we know like what, where our focus is. So then that way we're strategic in moving forward with our initiatives. Thank you so much. Oh, y'all are awesome. Y'all got me on fire today.
Yeah. All right. Who wants to give their next report out?
This is Lorena for the record. Oh, sorry. I don't know.
Go ahead, Lorena. I can go after you.
Okay, perfect. So I'm doing number 5, which is the coordination of behavioral health and primary care. I had a meeting, I want to say like 2 weeks ago, with my group. We had a Teams meeting and kind of just went over each of the goals and tried to get any feedback or ideas from anybody in the group as far as like what they kind of feel could help address that specific action plan. And some of the things that we've talked about, which I think they're all good ideas. I'm not sure how they would tie in with each of the COCs. So I think that would probably be like another discussion for each different COC. But we had discussions around like health homes, which are like models that are already happening in like other states, and seeing how we can like bring those over here. And pretty much what it is, it's like they're micro networks to help patients. So like pretty much bringing the services to those who are in a house. So bringing them to like the shelters, or bringing them kind of like probably like mobile clinics type of things. So that way it's like more accessible to them. And then also coordinating with other services that provide homelessness services to them instead of them having to go look for them. So kind of that type of coordination. We also kind of talked about collaboration within different agencies. So I think there's a lot of agencies that we're all kind of doing not the same thing, but we all have the same goals and values of like what we want to address, but there isn't enough collaboration happening, whether that be just because there isn't enough incentive to work together. And so kind of maybe further brainstorming of like what can incentivize people to kind of work more together to solve these issues. We also kind of talked about how we know there are already systems in place that kind of have like centralized information, whether that be like HMIS or the HIE systems, but how can we better use those to our advantage to better connect like the different services that patients are getting, whether that be like through the ER or through primary care or also through just other homelessness services in their communities. Because I know like HMIS mainly focuses right on like more so like agencies that are providing like homelessness services, but then the HIE is more medical, right? So not everybody has access to both of those. And so kind of seeing like how can we better connect those together, or even if there's like a navigation maybe person that can kind of like connect all of those things together, because I also know like they're expensive, right? So that's something that might turn people away from using those things, or they might not see like the benefits of using them, right? So like better educating them of like, this is what's out there, how can you use this to your benefit, and how can this better serve like your patients. And then we also talked about how like there's some changes coming to Medicaid, because the third goal is about leveraging our resources. And one of the things I think mentions Medicaid. So one of our peoples that were there with us kind of mentioned how Medicaid in Nevada is kind of changing a little bit as far as like housing services, and how they are moving towards developing like housing deposit programs for people. If you have like one of the MCOs, I don't know if fee for service is also following that, or if it's only the MCOs that are doing that. So I'd probably have to do a little bit more research on that. But it's mainly to help individuals who have Medicaid, who are unhoused, and obviously also medically frail, and then kind of seeing how they can help them get some type of housing, because usually the financial part is what's like the hardest part for our people who are living on a fixed income or have no income, right? And so those are like just a little bit of things that we kind of talked about. And I think just really the problem solving is like, how can we connect all of these things to every single COC, and seeing what agencies, I guess, are already doing some of these things, if they're doing anything, or if there would be any buy-in in like collaborations within the agencies and the different COCs to work together to kind of address these things. But that's where we're at. We have another meeting on the 7th of March, so I'm hoping to kind of have this typed out, see if there's any more additional stuff that our group might have from that, as well as just trying to see if they have any ideas of how this stuff can be presented to our peeps that are doing stuff already for a community, have the same goals as us, but we just got to work together on it type of thing. So yeah, that's my update.
Okay, great. And I forgot to ask Pam this earlier, but so I'm going to ask about, is there anything that you need from us?
That's a loaded question, Madam Chairperson. At this particular point, we're still in the formative stage, but I did also, I wanted to add that there are different organizations that are using their ARP HCY money, which is the American Rescue Plan, homeless children and youth monies, to build out like a post-secondary transition, network for the whole state for homeless children and youth. So when we talk about education and workforce development, those are some of those moves. So there's just like those small moves. So my goal right now is to connect other organizations and bring them into the conversation with our volunteers, so that we can actually see what resources we have and how we can further communicate those things. So what I would need is, I probably might need some help with just getting a list of different like workforce development entities. I'm Nevada Department of Ed, so I'm pretty sure I can pull some education stuff. But, like for instance, I've been in communication with Job Corps and a few other orgs, but I know that there are some in like, let's say, different parts of the state that I don't know about. So I want to like create that or continue to build that network so that we can actually, just assess where we are and what we have and what we're doing and what we're not doing. Thank you. That was a loaded answer to a question, but thank you.
Okay, great. Lorena, is there anything that you need from us?
I don't think so right now. Maybe next month. But I do know next month our deadline, did we say it was like by next meeting, or was it March 30th?
March.
We wanted.
Yeah, March 31st was the deadline. That's a Sunday, so the end of March is when we are shooting for our first draft.
Yeah, because I think with my group, what I had mentioned to them was that I would type up kind of like what our conversation was and kind of have some language for them by next time, and then review it with them in March and see if like they wanted to add anything or anything like that. And then that would be our first draft as far as like what we would present to you all. And then kind of just go from there. But I just wanted to double check that was correct.
Okay, cool.
Okay, thank you.
Well done, Lorena. Woo!
Thank you.
Okay, who else?
I can go.
Okay, Shannon.
My name is Shannon Cow for the record. I am presenting on the policy subgroup. We got through our other 3 goals. So first one had to do with funding to construct and preserve low-income and affordable housing units. We discussed some of the funding options that we are already aware of. Some of the aspirations that we came up with include, possibly looking at a dedicated funding source, having a central location to be able to go to get some of this information, as well as looking at requirements to keep units low income for a longer period of time. I know some of them have like 20 years or so, but we are looking at 30 to 50 years, as well as maybe like a government buyback, so that when they're at that point where they don't have to keep them low income, give it the option for the government to buy it back to keep them affordable. Our next goal had to do with supporting local policies that modify or expand zoning to create affordable housing. With this, it really, we looked at AB 213, which is a law that just got passed. So knowing that a lot of local agencies are working on this currently, and they have a deadline of July 1st to kind of have some things implemented, or at least have a plan, we kind of thought we should kind of see what comes out of that, and see how local agencies, local jurisdictions are utilizing that and what they're going to do with it. One of the things we discussed was the Reno plan, because of the fact that we had some information on that, as well as during their presentation on their plan, there was some developers that were on the call who brought up some of the barriers that they have to utilize some of the benefits that Reno provides. So we are looking at even a possible developer roundtable, so we can see what barriers they have to utilizing these, zoning options, and see if we can work with them to try to increase, right, the developers that are interested in developing low income. The last goal had to do with policies around ending veteran homelessness. One of the things that, sorry, there we are, we looked at is obviously more inventory is absolutely needed. Another thing would be looking at how to coordinate between veteran services that provide the housing and the other general homeless services, because sometimes it's difficult to get those connections, as well as some of the veteran population are worried about utilizing services, right, and mistrust in the system. So looking at outreach to that population to maybe increase their willingness to utilize the services. So since we got through all of the goals, I think our next idea is kind of to get it all typed up, get it to the members of the work group to have them look at it, and as well as kind of reach out to their networks and see if anybody else has anything to add. And then we should be right on cue for the first draft to be edited.
Awesome. All right. Do you need anything from us, Shannon?
I do not think so. I mean, obviously, Brooke is chair, and she is doing an amazing job with this work group. So I think as of right now, we're doing pretty well.
Great.
Lucky.
I'm thinking I want you to come over and help me with my work groups.
That part. Excellent.
All right. Okay, who's next? I guess I got to do some updates on mine. So the data and resources, coordination of data and resources. I'm just going to be real. The folks that have been showing up for the data and resources work group are really not the right people that need to talk about coordination of data, right? I really need to get the IT folks in the room, right? I really need to talk with them. So I've been having some smaller conversations with some targeted people and really talking about, what are the processes that we needed to go through in order to connect various systems of record, right? And what does that look like? And how do we really break that down? And what does that language look like so that we can get that language written down into an action plan? So just trying to have those conversations with the people that know, right? And because they haven't been coming to the meetings. So I've spent quite a bit of time doing that so that we can get that written and into our action plan. So I've got a lot of notes on that and how does that get mapped out? And then when do we bring in like the engineers to have the conversation? At what point do they come to the table? And what point do, we have to have a check and balance in place? And what point do we develop various data standards and data types? And, when we get the stakeholders involved to do the checking and making sure that what we're pulling in is the right data and making sure that do the validation of the data and all that stuff. So, and if that makes sense to any of you, good. I'm glad, because it's been taking me a while. I like data. I like what data will give me on the back end, but diving into this has been a new world. So I'm learning a new language. So I'm going to have a third language. English is my first. Huddies is my second. I'm going to have data as being my third. But we're getting there. So we're getting there with the data and resources. Regarding the long-term planning, we've been meeting every month for long-term planning. It has been very interesting that with the long-term planning, we have 7 goals in our 7 goals in our strategic issue under long-term planning. But what's interesting is that we have found that there's a lot of work happening across the state toward all of those goals that we identified in our strategic plan. So it's been very enlightening. And so we are really calling out now where the gaps are in across the state in the systems to start really populating the strategic plan. A couple of things that have been really highlighted. One, we had some great conversation today around the fact that the COCs do a great job of monitoring and auditing their COC funded programs, but there's really not a mechanism in place for non-COC or ESG funded programs, and there's nothing consistent across the state to monitor or to track or to ensure consistency or outcomes toward or the efficacy of programs and how agencies are doing and how they're going to do toward our state goals. And so that was something that came out of our long-term planning conversation today. And we felt also that impacted some of your other work teams too, like wraparound services, education, workforce development, primary and behavioral health, and even prevention, intervention, and even housing, that, probably need some conversation about how do we create some type of consistency and efficacy for outcomes and tracking those outcomes across programs, across agencies, across the state, and what does that look like, and across funding sources. So, and we don't know, does that belong in the data group? Does that belong in long-term planning? Does that belong in individual work teams? Does that belong up in the whole doggone strategic plan? But it was a conversation that took place in my work team. So I just wanted to make sure that I brought that to you all because I thought it was a really important thing that came up. And then the other thing that there were a couple other things that came up that I think impact the other you all's work teams as well. PLEs, persons with lived experience, it's called out in the long-term planning section, but that's something that really should and needs to be implemented and implanted really in every aspect of our plan, right? And so I just wanted to bring that to y'all and make sure that if it's not on your radar, that maybe you consider putting it on your radar for each of your sections for the integration of persons with lived experience in each of your sections. Because that is something that, it's in our state plan, but it shouldn't be carved out in one piece of long-term planning. It should be integrated into everything that we're doing. And then we need to take pieces from y'all's, all of you guys' sections that pertain to long-term planning, and we need to integrate that into long-term planning. So the other thing that came out of that was, how can we do all of what we need to do in long-term planning before you guys finish your portions? So that was a question that kind of came out of our group, was we kind of need to know what the outcomes of your action plans are in some instances, so that we know what to add into ours. Because there were conversations that took place. It was like, well, is this ours or is this wraparound service? Is this ours or is this a primary behavioral health? Is this ours or is this a workforce development? So there's conversations that are taking place that we're not sure. Does it really belong in long-term planning, or is it already taking place in some other of the work teams? So just throwing that all out there. Open to questions, feedback, suggestions.
Well, Madam Chairperson, I think you summed it up beautifully. I like the part where you also talked about the integration with people with lived experience. Yes, that is very important. The last youth, let me see, is the YHSI grant. So young, I think, homeless systems improvement grant that just closed. The COCs actually are getting together to write a statewide grant where they are actually incorporating the voice of the youth in some initiatives going forward. And so knowing that at the federal level, that is something that they are looking for. I do appreciate the fact that you're very intentional on making sure that not only that you're incorporating that into addressing the strategic issue that you are the champion of, but also reminding me and the rest of us to do that, because our efforts would be, fruitless if we are not, receiving feedback, but better yet, allowing or making space for those with the lived experience to show us what needs to be done so that we can be collaborative partners and not imposing on others what we think is best versus what they know is best in some instances.
Thanks, Dr. Janelle. Anybody else? Everybody's getting tired. Okay, do we have any report backs for prevention and intervention or housing? I don't think any of our chairs or co-chairs are here today for those two. Niani, did anybody from either of those groups send in an update for the meeting?
No, we did not receive an update, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Anything else from anybody on the subcommittee regarding any of these sub teams, sub working groups, work teams? I don't know what we're calling them.
Madam Chair, and please forgive me, team, I don't know where that updated champions list is. So if there's any way we could, or I could receive an email of that. I was digging through files and I couldn't find it. That would be very helpful, because I know I'm paired with someone, but I'm not really sure who I'm paired with. And I want to be sure that I get to share the opportunity for leadership.
Yanni, I'm assuming you're gonna, you or somebody on your team will make sure that.
Yes, it's on the screen now, but we'll also send it out again in an email.
So would this be where I can sing all by myself?
All right. Any other questions, comments, feedback, report backs for the for our strategic plan? Don't forget that we're going to have our first draft done by the end of March. So we're coming up, just over a month. So we want to get that rolling. Kind of get some things wrapped up. Doesn't have to be nice and pretty with the bow on it. We just need to, want to get a nice draft going so that we can then start massaging things and figuring out what it's going to look like, so that as we get closer and closer to the rollout of, or time for BDRs, that we can get some good information out for our legislators as they're starting to prep for next year's legislative session. And I think as whoever's updating that sheet that's on the screen, I think we had decided at our last meeting that Karen was not going to work with me on long-term planning. She was going to focus more on the other two that she's on. And I think Shannon Cook is Shannon, I don't know if I said your last name correctly.
It's Kaut.
Cow? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So Shannon is the co-chair for Brooke and policies. Okay. Is Scott still on the team?
Madam Chair, we have not received notification of him stepping down. He responds to the invites and says that he's not attending the meetings. I've emailed a couple of times. I can definitely reach out again if you'd like.
Yes, I think we need to.
Okay. We will get that done this week.
And Pam, Dr. Janelle, if you've got somebody else on the workforce and education or education workforce team that's really been helping you and wants to step up as your co-chair, you are welcome to ask them to do so. Shannon was able to do that as a community member with Brooke with policy. So you're welcome to do that with a community member that is working on your work team.
Madam Chair, you don't say, but thank you very much. I will definitely utilize that tool. Thank you very much for that. I do know that we've had quite a few changes. So I will definitely put that invitation out there, even though my group is kind of fledgling right now, so I don't want them to like run back into the shadows just yet.
Okay, just wanted to put that out there in case that was helpful.
That's very supportive. Thank you so much.
So, and that's that's the case for any of us. If we need to have pull on our community group, there's no reason why those folks can't step up and be co-chairs with us. There's nothing that says that it has to be somebody from this subgroup that has to be a co-chair for the work team. Work teams are short-term in nature, and it's just to get this work done. So, okay. So if there's nothing else on this work, then let's go ahead and close down this agenda item, and let's move on to agenda item number 6. Is that where we're at? Can I get a head nod from Niani? Okay, 6. Agenda item number 6. This for information only discussion for agenda items for our next meeting for March 19th, 2024. I think we definitely need to continue our discussion around where we are on the strategic plan. So that's a standing item. And can we ask for an update from Niani, from your team, on how many applicants we've had through the portal and how many emails y'all have sent out for follow-up?
Yes, Madam Chair, we will have that agendized.
Awesome. Is there anything else that we want on the agenda? This is open to anybody on the Technical Assistance Committee. Nothing else? We just want the 2 items. Remember, you have to unmute your mic in order to speak. Okay, either everybody's walked away from their computers because they're done. They're like, I'm done with this meeting, or nobody has anything to say.
I have nothing to say, and I'm still here listening in.
Thank you, Nolga. At least I know that somebody is there other than Dr. Pam and Yanni.
I'm still here listening to everything.
That's right. That's my girl.
I was just eating
awesome.
something while you all were
For putting
talking.
your camera back on. I hate that dead air. Nothing is there.
Yeah. No, I was just trying to eat something while you guys were talking. That's all.
All right. Do you have anything to go on the agenda for next month? No? Chris says no. Nolga says no. Lorena, you got anything for next month's agenda?
I do not.
All right. I'm just going to be calling people out. You know, nobody wants to answer. I just call them out.
Yeah, you want to talk about me being the educator. Ooh.
Hey, girl, I was a part-time professor at UNLV. I can call people out.
I remember you. I sure do. Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. I guess that's it, Niani. We're going to hopefully have a short, sweet meeting next week or next month. Okay. So with that, we'll go ahead and close that agenda item, and we are going to move to the last public comment on our agenda, which is agenda item number 7. No action may be taken upon a matter raised until the matter has been specifically added to the agenda, and y'all had your chance. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. If you are making a public comment via phone, please call 1-775-321-6111, ID number 847-312-658#. We're now open for public comment. Please unmute yourself and state your name for the council. Public, we are open. We would like your comments. You do have to unmute your mic in order to give us your comments. I am not seeing any or hearing any public comment. Is there any comment from the Technical Assistance Committee members? Seeing none, hearing none, then I'm going to close this agenda item. And agenda item number 8 is adjournment. So at this time at 3:16 on February 20th, 2024, I am going to adjourn the meeting of the Technical Assistance Committee of the Interagency Council of the Homelessness to Housing. And we will meet the same bat time, same bat channel next month. I want to say thank you for everybody for joining us and being with us and participating in our meeting today. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I think everybody's off except for us, Michelle. Okay.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
We had quorum, which was good because I wasn't sure because Chris, I thought notified that he wasn't going to be there, but he showed up. So
it was for last week. He thought the meeting was last week.
Oh, okay. So perfect. We will get busy. We've got to get some things done. And we might send your way, we are going to send your way this week just to make sure we have these letters because I do want to get that listserv out right away. So I'll probably actually send that to you tomorrow by the end of the day.
Okay.
Just to make sure. And then we're off and rolling. I think it was good.
Yeah. It was good conversation. Good
Yeah.
conversation. Thank you for your messages and your
yeah, we're tag teaming it. We're good. We're good.
Hey, I appreciate those coming up, and you can't message me back, but I'm just gonna keep sending these things to you. And I'm like, okay, that'll work.
Just because
I got a little birdie in my ear.
Right, just because the date and the timing, I'm like, ooh, what can we make sure we can get done? Because yeah, I just didn't want to put us in a situation where I'm like, there's no way we can get everything posted that we need to.
Oh, I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
You know those things in the background, and so I appreciate you sending me those things, and I just kept that thing up, and then your little messages just came up, and I was able to, just kind of incorporate them into.
Okay, so we're good. Thank you,
I
Michelle.
love that. I think we should do that regularly.
Thank you so much.
Thank
We'll
you.
get to
I
work and
appreciate
you'll get
you.
emails from us soon.
Okay. I appreciate you. I appreciate your team. You guys are awesome.
We appreciate the work you guys are doing. That's the most important part. Yeah. Thank you.
We're getting there. All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.